Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. With Ari Timken, I'm James Westling, and we are brought to you, the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo, exclusively on TuneIn, watching us on Big 12 Studios and the Big 12 Studios Fast Channel. Shehan Jeyarajah from CBS has his Big 12 football power rankings out for the 2026 season. Who are the favorites in the league, and who are the teams that he thinks will be at the bottom? Shehan joins us now to break it all down. Hey, Shehan, good morning.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Man, thanks for coming on. It is list season, and you go right to the core with your football power rankings. I guess take us through behind the scenes how you put this list together, because yesterday was National Signing Day. You've got the portal. Are you looking at depth charts? Are you looking at who teams bring in, coaching changes? What factors were at play?
I mean, I'll tell you what, if anybody has any depth charts to share with me, I'd love to see them, because there is nothing out there right about now when it comes to trying to work through these rosters. But that's a big part of it, right? So for me as an individual, like I always love returning production. I always love guys who have been in the system for multiple years. I always love coaching staffs that are consistent. I mean, in this world of college football, I think that being able to work through some consistency is a big deal. You know, I know that I drew the ire of some Iowa State fans for ranking them last. But, it's just as simple as that, right? It's a staff that's never worked together fully. It's a roster that's never worked together fully. They brought over some guys, especially on defense, but, you just don't even know how these offensive players are going to fit together. So I definitely value, sort of consistency. When there isn't consistency, because, of course, that's kind of the reality now, I kind of look at a couple of different things, right? One is, what level of returning production do you have? Yes. But also, what is the caliber of guy that you brought in over the offseason, be it through the transfer portal, be it, through high school recruiting as well. And on top of that, I mean, I think a big part of especially competing in the Big 12 is trying to figure out which teams have individual units that have a chance to be all conference caliber. So, I think about, obviously, Texas Tech, loses a lot of players, but they also brought in a quarterback who has a chance to be an all-conference player in Brendan Sorsby. So, you're kind of trying to balance all of those things, and the reality is this is probably as unscientific a power ranking as you will find, just because of all of the dynamics that you have to take into account.
Right. What fan base, Shehan, took most exception to your list?
Oh, it was Iowa State, for sure. Iowa State. I had them at number 16 on my list. And I want to be clear about this, right? This is a power ranking. This is about your current existential state. I actually think there's a pretty good chance that Iowa State is not the worst team in the league. But when you look at how much they have to change up compared to last year. I mean, this is a developmental program. It isn't one that, is wheeling and dealing, and I think they spent very good money in the portal. Don't get me wrong, but it isn't the sort of program where you're just obviously they're going to fill in every single hole. They're a program that I think is always going to be a little bit more of a slow burn. And, they brought in some guys that I really like. Jalen Raynor, the quarterback coming over from Arkansas State, I think is an underrated player. A couple of guys on the offensive line that I really liked. A couple swings on defense as well. But it's just that they have no baseline right now is the biggest thing when you're trying to evaluate them as sort of a long-term power ranked team. And so I had them last. Certainly Iowa State fans were not super happy about that. I got a little bit of mess from Cincinnati fans who thought we lost Brendan Sorsby, but we have a lot else kind of to be excited about. 3 offensive linemen coming back, and they pointed out I picked them at number 11 last year in my power rankings. Well, I will point out Cincinnati finished number 10, so I wasn't super off on them back then as well.
Shehan, what do you like about Houston at number 3?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that this is one of those things where you almost just trust the coach over just the roster details, right? And there's a lot I like, don't get me wrong, about the roster. Connor Wigman heading into his second year as a full-time starting quarterback. I think that they've upgraded their receiver position. I think that they still should be really good on the defensive side of the ball. But, let's be really clear about this, right? I thought that Houston's roster last year was just okay, and they won 10 games. What Willie Fritz does is just unbelievable. And when you compare them to almost every other team outside of that top 2, I think that to me, Texas Tech, BYU, they're on a different level right now, at least, than everybody else. When you look at everybody else, I mean, I think that Houston absolutely has the possibility with their high-level coaching of rising to the top. The exciting dynamic coming in is the addition of Keyshawn Henderson, the number one player in the country. He's a quarterback. I think that they're going to use him in a lot of different ways because they, of course, bring back their starting quarterback as well. So just really excited about what this team can continue to be on offense. I think the growth after making a coordinator change from year 1 to year 2 on offense was huge. I think they're going to take another step in year 3 as well.
So I made the case that BYU should be the favorite in the Big 12 over Texas Tech just based on the continuity of what they bring back, whereas Texas Tech's replacing a bunch of guys. Now, obviously, Texas Tech has continuity with their coaching staff, and Jay Hill's gone on the defensive side, but kind of curious for your thoughts on that as you have Texas Tech 1 and BYU 2.
Well, two things I'll say to that, right? One is, from a power ranking perspective, right, like, I give Texas Tech that credit for being the team that did it last year, right?
Yeah,
so that's certainly a factor. This isn't solely sort of like where I see the league shaking out 1 through 16, although obviously that's a huge part of it. But, the other thing too is that I think that there is, whether fair or not, a question about whether BYU can break through that top level. And, we've seen them get to that top level. They won 11 and 12 games the past 2 years. And then obviously against some sort of the elite competition, they weren't able to finish the job. Well, I think that that's going to sort of be the big question with them coming into this year too, right? Is, you bring back Bear Bachmeyer. I mean, LJ Martin, I think might be, there's a really good chance he's the best returning player in the Big 12 at running back. Defensively, I think this team is still going to be really, really good. I mean, the players like that they have coming back, Isaiah Glasker, Felatau, Satuala, like really, really good players. This could be one of the league's best defenses, but I think that you look at what Texas Tech brought in. I think they're going to be a lot better offensively with Brendan Sorsby coming in. The biggest dynamic that I don't think people are talking about is that it really is almost impossible to rebuild an offensive line in 1 year. The teams that have been able to do it are actually ones who have guys for 2 years.
Yeah.
And Texas Tech is heading into year 2 with a lot of these same offensive linemen. I think that is a hugely underrated component of what this team can be. And also, by the way, even if you want to say why this team struggled against Oregon in their last game of the season. Defensively, I don't think that they're going to obviously be as good as they were last year, but I think that they're going to be really good at linebacker. I think they're going to be really good on the back end. We'll see what their defensive line can be. I just think that this is going to continue to be, at least for the moment, the class of the league. And the blessing and the curse about is that these two teams don't play in the regular season, so we're probably going to get that battle again in Arlington.
Shehan Jeyarajah from CBS Sports going over his Big 12 offseason power rankings. And you note that, it could be a season of transition in the Big 12 with at least 10 teams that'll break in new quarterbacks. And then coaching mainstays like Mike Gundy and Chris Kleiman and Matt Campbell and Kyle Whittingham are off to different schools or off to new adventures, as you note. But then also 22 of the 28 position players on the All Big 12 first team are no longer in the league. So what does that say about how open it could be? Or is it kind of next man up in terms of what that first team All Big 12 might look like in your opinion? Or is it more newcomers in the league?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of newcomers, right? I mean, obviously some really good players are back, and even when you mentioned, of course, guys leaving their current schools, I mean, we have situations too with to talk Texas Tech again, Brendan Sorsby at quarterback, Austin O'Man at linebacker. That might be two of their best players, and they came from Big 12 schools and obviously stayed in the Big 12 at Texas Tech. But, I do think it's going to be a lot of new additions, and, that's for a couple of reasons, right? One is I think that a lot of guys who are maybe next in line to move up. I mean, I look at an Iowa State, right, who we talked about. A lot of guys who I think would have been all-conference first team in 2026 are now playing at Penn State. And then there are other examples of, whether it be the level of guys who you have transferring in, right? I mean, I think that quarterback's going to be fascinating. You have a Brendan Sorsby, you have a Bear Bachmeyer. There's so many different guys who I think will have a chance to nudge themselves into that all-conference first team discussion. Jaden Craig at TCU is a player coming over from Harvard that I think people are pretty excited about. Avery Johnson, can he take that step? So I think it's just going to be a very wide open year where you have this collection of high-level newcomers, certainly, like there was last year, by the way, and also some guys that maybe you're thinking, can they hit the top of their development curve?
By the way, I love that hat, Shehan. That had a sick.
Thank you. So I was down in Miami for the title game, and classic Miami, classic the U, right? They had lots and lots of stuff that was very 80s and 90s. So
Yes.
I had to grab at least something, even though it was like a $45 hat or something.
If there's a team that you have here, let's say 9th through 16th, that you think could exceed expectations, who do you think it could be?
Yeah. Well, I think that Oklahoma State, I think, was right on that borderline at 8. But I think that that's sort of the obvious candidate. I mean, last year they were 1-11. It was one of the worst seasons that we've seen from them in a very long time. But like with what they have coming in, like this is a team that I think absolutely has the upside and capacity to win at a high level. Now, I mentioned it. I think that it's really, really hard to build an offensive line in 1 year, and I think that that's probably going to end up being a fatal flaw for them contending for the conference. But you look at their skill talent. I mean, Drew Messmaker coming over at quarterback was one of the top 3 players in the portal. I love their running back coming over as well. They brought over their top wide receiver from North Texas, and I actually think they made some really, really smart additions on defense in the portal as well. This is a team that, again, I mean, I spoke to one staffer over there, and he was just like, yeah, I mean, this roster was a mess. Like we felt like we didn't even have anything to work with. We just had to start from absolute scratch. But I think that they've done it at an incredibly high level. And I think that when you look at that team, I mean, that's one that I think has the upside to, probably lose some games along the way, but also has the upside of potentially getting into the mix. I think that also, again, I mean, it's kind of a little easy to just kind of go with your number 8 and number 9 teams. But Kansas State is really interesting to me. A lot of losses on the defensive side of the ball after making a coaching change, losing their defensive coordinator, Joe Klanderman, to Baylor. But, offensively, this is a team that I think is going to look really interesting. Avery Johnson working with Colin Klein again. He was a huge part of getting him to Manhattan in the first place. I think that their offense is just going to have the chance to be a lot more dynamic, and we'll see what the upside is. Again, I mean, this is, like I talk about with Iowa State, this is a developmental program, and losing developmental guys is tough for trying to hit that upside. But I think that the offensive growth is going to give them a chance to be at least pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Dynamic. Love that word. Definitely was not one used with the K-State offense a season ago, so that'll be exciting for K-State Nation. Shehan, love your power rankings, and thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Shehan Jeyarajah from CBS Sports, his Big 12 power rankings at cbssports.com, covers college football and really shines a light on the Big 12 at the national level. We've still got Rachel Galligan, our Big 12 women's basketball analyst, coming up next hour. But after this timeout, I want to take Ari behind Joe Lunardi's bracketology, behind the scenes, get his thoughts on some of the things that Lunardi shared on a conference call yesterday for ESPN. This is Big 12 Today. This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league, brought to you, the Full-Time Fan, by Modelo here on TuneIn.